So I'm Robert, president of Permaboss, and I want to share with you a couple emails or questions from emails that we get. And sometimes I get an email that has a whole bunch of questions and I don't want to repeat it all the time, and I thought this one was specifically good about the NGR 6, the next generation rhinestone robot with the 6 hoppers. So I'll share it with you, and the idea is maybe you get to know us and the company a little bit better while I go through it. So excuse me when I have to look down because I don't have the whole thing committed to memory. So one question is how large a design can be produced. Basically 450 millimeters by 320 millimeters. The paper comes in 320 millimeter width. So to other people that's 17, to other people, to the imperial system, it's 17.7 inches by 12.6 inches. That's the width of the roll of the paper. And if you do that diagonally, it's 21.7 inches, so you can get something quite a bit long across a body or sleeve of a dance outfit, etc. There's some things in the background here where we actually used our laser and then combined it with our software to do the rhinestones. So we etched out the rows. When you wash it, that bleaches more and you're left with the rhinestones. Or here we have a fist with jewelry holding a necklace, or websites or popular things that go on, or popular car companies. So when you do something like this, you can probably get almost 50 of them across the sheet, like a checkerboard. When you do something like this, you could probably get 6 or 9 depending upon the way you rotate it or hold it inside the sheet. What's the cost of the transfer sheets? We're talking about the silicone paper that you use to stick the stones to. There's an acrylic version, but the acrylic version has a very short shelf life, and the problem is that if you ever have to ship your transfers because you make them and send them out, in the U.S. Postal Service, in UPS, in FedEx, they can come loose and you'd lose them. So we always use a silicone paper. We generally buy that by the skid, and then you can get rolls off of that because that's the cheapest way to do it. The average roll is about $180 when you buy a single roll. Again, it's 32 centimeters wide by 100 meters long on that roll. So that's 12.6 inches by 109 yards. If you break it down, you're talking about 0.011 per square inch. And if you're talking about something that's 3 inches by 5 inches, maybe like the one down here, you're in the neighborhood of approximately 16.5 cents for that sheet. So this is 8.5 by 11. Imagine something 3 by 5, and that's 16 cents for you. So it's not a big cost. It's probably almost sometimes more than or equal to the stones maybe. Are there pre-cut sheets or rolls? No, you cut them. Otherwise you're paying double or triple. If somebody's selling you pre-cut, or one of the competitors out there, you have to use their type of transfer paper. I find it's another way to capture your business and hold you hostage to what should be your profit margin. So you want to buy the paper wholesale or from a supplier that specifically needs to just get you the paper and not make a killing off the paper. Our machine is the business, but some people have a hard time finding the paper, so we just add that on. We'd never sell you the stones because I think it's problematic when you get automated equipment and you're a manufacturer and you have to pay a middleman for the stones. Our opinion is you need to go straight to the source, so that when you make a transfer like this, you're talking about making a transfer for 20 or 30 cents in stones maximum. If you get the stones here in North America and not direct from the supplier in Asia that is trusted, I mean there's like 40 of them on Alibaba if you want to find them, but many of them are based on a computer in their bedroom and they're brokering the stones, they're not the manufacturer. So you get a couple little orders, and these are true horror stories, and then when you have a big order you never see the stones and your money's gone, there's no recourse. So you want to use trusted people that we've been using maybe for 7-8 years, that our customers as a group spend probably millions of dollars with in total. Those people you can trust. Those people know what's at stake. They're going to send you the first quality stones with the best glue, with the best long-lasting ability, and that you can use. You can get the machine cut, which is brilliant, beautiful stones, more expensive, and it's the closest thing that you can get to Swarovski without calling it Swarovski. So these are pretty blunt answers, and they're not in any way meant to hurt anybody's feelings or offend anyone. They're just going to be straightforward answers. What's the difference between our software, Rhinestone Works, and other software out there? And I know that with our main competitors who sell machines, there's no valid, really hardcore, good software to produce a design very quickly, very easily. It's very limited, and it's almost like placing one stone at a time with your mouse. There's no vectorization features. There's no posterizing of images. There's no ability to deal with vectors and edit the vectors. And there's no autofill features on the ones that come with the machine. If you buy other software out there, there's a lot of add-ons now. And I can't keep track of them all because it seems like there's more and more, but the goal with our software was that you don't have to be a Corel or an Adobe Illustrator person knowing what all those 400 features are. Most people that we've come across do not and are not experts. They do not know all the features on Corel and Adobe, and that causes a lot of problems. The second thing is that with Rhinestone Works, when you take a picture and you create it into a vector, when you have a straight line, there's 2 points between that line. That means one node and another node. When you have a curve, there's many nodes along that line, but you can have a really nice circle without having a zillion nodes. And we've designed the software to be like that so that you have less to edit. When you adjust our nodes, the thing doesn't jump out all over you. That's a characteristic that's in Corel, and that's an excellent software for graphic arts production. But when you want to make a rhinestone design, it's not the same. And the idea is if you do the yin yang logo, and we'll insert a picture of the yin yang logo in the video, you've got a black circle and then you've got a white circle. If I send that to a graphic artist, they'll make a circle and there'll be the white one. They'll put a second circle on top and they'll adjust it for the yin yang. But now on this side you have got 2 vector lines, 2 circles. So to a cutting machine, to a laser, to a robot, that means do that twice. So if I say put stones on the vectors, it's going to put stones on the vector and it's going to do it twice where it's overlapping. And when you're looking on your monitor, you don't see that. And when you're watching your robot, you're having the machine place 2 stones in one spot, and the tendency is to blame the machine, and it's really in the file where you gave the robot the instruction to do it. The robots don't come up with their own inventions. They just take the information you give it and duplicate it. So these things are all thought out. And when we started in 2001, when there was no competition, there was nobody making, there was only one manufacturer making a rhinestone robot in the world, and we went out. Now it's changed. Now there's half a dozen manufacturers. They're all in Asia, one in Europe, and then there's us making the machine in Canada. And not one of those companies, other than Permaboss, actually has the software, design software that's made in-house. So I think there's a gap between the algorithms where you're talking and communicating with a machine, and unless you make machines, you can't always understand or have that high-level understanding of how to make things more efficient, more effective. The second thing is, and I don't mean it in a derogatory manner, but we have the proverbial quote-unquote housewife who makes some beautiful shirts, and all of a sudden the demand goes up and up, and they're working till 2, 3 in the morning, and they are not a graphic artist, and they are not a high-skilled geek computer user. So the software has to be easy. For you, the business owner, I need you to be able to hire a student, not a graphic artist, to be able to do the artwork. You have to know what looks good. You have to be able to make it in a short period of time. Any one of the competitive softwares out there can do outstanding work. The question is, can you do it in 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 7 minutes and get something with a stone count and be able to adjust it again and redraw really quickly? Can you move it around on your work surface without crashing your computer when you got to move 4,000 stones quickly? And can you send that to your customer as an artwork proof, as a PDF from that folder with the stone count and know exactly what it's going to cost? That's the difference with our software. And now if you send this to our competitors, maybe they can figure out what they can add in their software to make it a little bit better. We're not an add-on to a program where you have to get a license and then add something else on. That often happens with Corel. We don't have, hundreds of features because it's hardcore meant to take bad artwork, take GIF from a website, the GIF or the PNG, which is lower quality resolution, and turn it into a full front rhinestone design really quickly. So there's some thought process put in there, and that's why you won't see great detailed videos on YouTube with our software, because we don't want to educate everybody. We want it to be your secret weapon, your unfair advantage in the marketplace to be able to do that. I explained that it's an easier vectorization process that's built in, less nodes, less time to edit bad art to get in from a website logo into a rhinestone design. And we haven't seen to date many softwares that can take so fast the rhinestone and add it to the line, inside the line, outside the line, and create fills and randomly take stones and create fills and not have massive stone collisions and give you the information you need so that you have the file for the robot. We can also take our competitors' files If you've got, for example, the Gem Master program, they're not gone to waste. You can open up the Gem Master files in our software and then convert it out, or you can go backwards and have the file for the Gem Master. So it's a really good tool. If you're frustrated with your software and you own a CAMS machine, this is a great software to use for that. Let me see what else we got here. And like I said, when you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 stones and you want to shift it to a position on your work surface, you don't want your computer to freeze and have trouble moving all those stones. We don't have that. The question is, what would be the major difference between your machine and the famous CAMS machine? That's the Korean-made machine. We have a touch screen and everything's controlled with a picture and not like a little couple buttons where you got to figure out where you are. We can get all the running info, and we can see where errors are when you're running the machine, etc., and have an error log, which is nice when you're learning the machine. You can figure out where you're making a mistake, if it's in your calibration, your adjustment, where the stone's being picked or where it's being placed. You can find that information out. You have the ability to move the design on the screen. So there's some pictures and videos on YouTube where you're looking down and we've made a design in a specific pocket, but now you're doing custom work. You got to make one up or two up. You can move the whole thing on the touch screen over and position it in the next place. That's really convenient and handy. We know customers, I won't mention names, but think of the biggest tool supplier in the United States who has a machine in less than 6 months over $4,000 of repair. We don't have a 4-page sales contract to go over when you buy our machine. It's a 5-page, sales contract with conditions and about the sale and the liability, etc. We have the same price from everyone. You won't find that our prices go down every 2 weeks until you buy something, and that the one person who acts quick pays more than the person who's a shrewd negotiator, etc. It's the same price for everybody. You can look in our folders over all the years. The only thing that used to be different was the exchange price based on the country. So here it's the same for everybody. The work table in the NGR is generally larger, unless that's changed recently. The second thing is that it's aluminum, so it won't bend. If you have a work table that's not bent, made out of aluminum, it tends to bend over time. So the stone placement here and here is different and less pressure because the thing can't extend that far. We have an aluminum work table, and the thing is that the whole table is removable and replaceable, and you always get 2 of them. Why? Because if you have to peel off the transfer paper and do the quality control that way, that's a pain in the butt. I would rather you take literally 2 seconds to pop the table out, and it's magnetic, and put the next one in and go again, and then deal with the paper while the machine is running, because production time adds up. That comes from experience of dealing with very large companies that count every second of every day to maximize their 8-hour shift, and they're running basically 2 or 3 shifts. Work table out of aluminum. Now another thing that's important, and it's something that you don't see, there's something called stepper motors and servo motors. Stepper motor is a small motor, and it controls the movement of the disc, of an arm, of an aperture, etc. And it's a simple, effective way to be very efficient versus when you're using air movement. And the second thing is that if it goes out of place, you have no way of correcting because there's no measurement. It's just taking an impulse of electricity and moving it one rotation. A servo motor has intelligence in it and gets a read back. And we use the servo to get the stone in the picker, and we use the second servo to take the stone and place it onto the paper. And that means more accuracy, and that's very important. It's a lot cheaper. You can get a stepper motor for $50 to $90. And you can get a servo motor for basically $700 to anywhere. The sky's the limit. So there's literally, 1,000% price increase to do that. And when you buy a machine that's made in Canada by Permaboss, you're getting servos in there where it counts, and you're not getting the stepper motors. You get the stepper motors where it's not as important. But I could make a machine. It would be a lot cheaper to do steppers. I just have more headache, and I chose not to do that. Nothing's outsourced. In terms of components, I explained before in another video that when I was in Asia learning how to deal with suppliers and finding sources for things, I found out that you can get a brand name part, but there's the version that's acceptable in that country, then there's a version that's acceptable in Europe, and then there's a version with the Canadian and the US standards, which has the CSA and the UL, which are those governing boards that when you pay to get that component improved, it's a lot more expensive because the quality, the longevity, the wearability, all those things are different. So it's one thing to say we use a brand name part, but then there's another thing to say we use a brand name part that's bought here, sourced here, and approved here by CSA and UL. And those components for manipulation of air, regulation of air that are in the machine are all the brand name ones that are approved here. So if it was, it's literally the same thing that you'd find in a machine that would be in a hospital, because you're not allowed to use anything that doesn't have the CSA or the UL approval on that, for example. And that's critical, and that's what makes less problems over the long time. We have a 2-year full use, unlimited use warranty, meaning that if you use it for 1 hour, use it for 24 hours a day for 2 years, there's a full warranty, and we give you a series of spare parts. Those spare parts are for you to do the wear and tear stuff, so that right now when I'm doing this video, it's actually Friday before a long weekend, and if you're on the West Coast, the whole office is cleaned out except me doing the video here all lonesome with the cameraman in the background. And where are you going to get help? You have a little toolbox, and those emergency critical, mission critical components are in there, and because we did a 2-day training on site, you have that at your disposal to solve your problem in 10 minutes, and now you're back up and running, and then you can order a replacement part. So there is wear and tear on the machine, but you have all the things you need to run the machine securely for 2 years and not have a major issue. And like anything else, we'd send you the part. You've trained basically how to swap it out yourself if you have an issue. But the point is, when you use better parts, you have less of those problems. Important point is that we use literally 10% of the air consumption. So instead of having to buy a $4,000 rotary vane air compressor, it's not required. You can buy it because it is quieter, but the demand that we have on air is 10% of the Asian-based machines. Why? Because when you use those components I just mentioned, you have more efficiency and less problematic loss of air, and you have better vacuum and suction, so that works better. At the time, I made a video years ago where the technology didn't exist to have really good suction from when you're blowing air. So the compressor on these machines creates so much air past a hole. So this is the hole, the air is being blown past here, and because it's being blown past, the air is sucked in from here as well, which is the part that's grabbing the stone, but on a miniature scale. And now the components are there, so paying a little bit more for a better machine, or sometimes actually the same price for a machine, you end up having something that is longer lasting, that requires less parts or components on the outside. The more air demand you have, that means that you create more moisture in the air, because by principle, when you compress air, you create heat. When you create heat, you create moisture. That means you have to also get a $1,400, $1,500 air dryer. So with us, you can get an $800, $700, $500 air compressor, and it'll be fine to run the machine. You can get, and it'll last long because it's not the same demand. And you can get a $400 air dryer, which is important, so the air is dried, and you get a $90 air filter, and you're more than adequate. And right there, you just save yourself over $3,500 just on parts and components, almost $4,000 actually, where you would have to pay that when you bought a different machine. And you know, when you have a commercial product and you have a repair, that's not something you can get repaired by your husband or a handyman. That's something that you have to have that tech come in at $125 an hour and do that repair on that compressor. So it is a better compressor, but if you don't need it, you don't need it. Let me see here. On the machine, you have the discs. There'll be a picture in the corner of the video, and those discs with us are dual-sided, so you have double use, and we include all of them. So I've got a quote here where the discs are quoted at $598 each. Those discs cost $90 a side, basically, and I think it's unfair to have such a massive markup on it. I understand I got to stay in business, we have to be healthy, we have to pay all the bills for all the people, all the payroll, all the insurance, but there's a healthy margin, and there's a margin where it's brutal and it's unfair to sustain. So we include it all with the machine. We don't put them as options later on, or we don't use it as a tool to discount the machine but then charge for that, so we really in effect have zero discount in it. It's all included, and if you need another one because you somehow drove your truck over it and rubbed it across the cement or something, then you can get one, and you certainly won't be $600, that's for sure. We include a PC touchscreen. It's not an additional accessory, and we use Windows 7 Pro. Why? Because when we're installing it, we're often needing it to go into a network to pull files off, and why bother have you go through the headache? Because the home edition doesn't network properly very efficiently with a more commercial system, where as your business grows, you have to go through that whole headache, and it's not the same feature, not the same robustness as the Windows 7 Pro. So as it changes, when the next Windows come and there's a Pro version and it's been debugged, you'll be able to upgrade that very easily. Most importantly, you don't have to buy the stones from us. Why? Because that's your profit margin. That's your ability to make the most money. If you add up, if you take a look at what they sell a tiny little bag of crystals for, and you look at what 1,000 grosses, which is a large bag. That large bag is between $35 and $100 based on the quality and the color of the stone, but that's 1,000 times, it's 1,000 gross is 1,000 times 144. So now you've got a decent, massive quantity of stones, and you're getting it without the 300%, 500%, 100% markup that you would buy from another person. Using stones direct from the supplier, importing it yourself, and Permaboss will show you how to do it because it's very simple today with all the computers and the way they do things. You will pay for our machine. It'll be for free because the stone consumption is kind of like the day when you bought the inkjet printer for $30 and then you go to Costco and now a cartridge is $49. Your printer was $29, but your cartridge is $49, and you got to buy them in a pair. So for a $29 printer, you got to buy a $100 inkjet cartridge. We've all experienced that, and that's the phenomena that we don't want. It's the thing that our accountant doesn't like because, in essence, most businesses are very healthy when you have this consumable back-end revenue and you're milking the customer forever. You need to buy a good machine. Our theory is that if you buy the right machine and you get all the information and the know-how to be able to be in a productive mode and the tools on how to be profitable and know where to buy the supplies, then the next logical time you need anything, it'll be from us machine-wise, or you'll get something else from us. 40% of Permaboss customers buy a second machine within 18 months. So I think that's our sustainability plan rather than what the accountant wants on this back-end business. Let me see, any other questions? No, so I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video and making me feel like a newscaster, and tomorrow's weather is going to be really bright. If you get our machine, you're going to need to wear some shades. So thanks a lot for your time.